Hey everyone, Ryan the Vintage Viking. Good to see you again. I have my November wrap up for you today. Even though it's a little bit late, it was still an awesome month and I'll share it with you now. All right, so first up, I read The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. This is actually one that my daughter was reading for school, and I've been reading whatever she's reading for school, I'm reading also. This is one of them. It's kind of a series of like vignettes, stories, obviously taken from, I would say, her childhood, life on the streets, kind of things like that, things she noticed. It was decent. I can see why it was a good book. It was not my typical read that I would do. There were some themes in here that were pretty heavy. So, good to, be able to talk with my daughter about and things like that. Obviously, it seems to me that at some point in time, there was some difficulties in her past, and this is a way of expressing them or getting them out or sharing to other people about them. So if you've read it, you'll know what I mean. It was, it's a critically acclaimed book. It is very quick read, simple read, and like little short stories that kind of all seem to flow together in a way. It's a good one. It was a good one. That was kind of a separate one that wasn't typically what I would read. It wasn't on my TBR. It was just something that she's reading. That being said, my daughter is going to be homeschooling now, so I get to pick what she reads for English now. And so we've chosen to have her read at least one book a month, and so, which is a pretty good amount for a 9th grader. And so the one she's currently reading is The Giver. I'll be reading that as well this month. And then I get to pick each one for the months after. We've already selected a couple, but if you guys have any good suggestions for something that like kind of should be read or needs to be read or is just really worth reading, let me know and I'll definitely take it into consideration. So I was so disappointed in this book. I was really, really hoping it was going to be fantastic. This is one of those ones that's just blasted all over BookTube as like just an amazing book. You know how it is. A book gets a little bit of popularity. Everyone and their grandma reads it. Everyone says it's awesome. Everyone has to promote it. But it made me think the book was going to be fantastic. And it just wasn't. It just wasn't. I really didn't like it at all. I couldn't wait to be done with it. So you may be surprised. So the book is Mountains in the Sea, or Mountain in the Sea by Ray Naler. It was just not a good book for me. I know many people like it. Many people enjoy it. I didn't. More than likely, you're going to not see the last 15 minutes that I just talked, and it's just going to cut right to this, and you won't know what I said. Okay. But it was really good. Another book that I read was The Salvage Crew by Yudhanjaya Wijeratne. I don't know. This one I had really high hopes for as well, because Mr. Nathan Fillion, star of Firefly, star of Serenity, star of Castle, Mr. Nathan Fillion is the one who did the audiobook, and I was really hopeful. The audiobook was good. It was great to sit there and listen to Nathan Fillion do the audiobook. It did at times get like kind of whispery, which almost like the word cut out, like it didn't pick up the word or record it just every so often. So it made it every so often it made it a little difficult. But he did an awesome job conveying the story, all that stuff. The story was like started off really strong. It was really good. I was like, oh yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Like the idea was cool, and it was into it. And then about halfway through, like it just kind of went off the rails and derailed. It's almost like the story changed and went a different route. And even though it didn't, it just felt that way. And it just went downhill all the way to the end. And that kind of kind of ruined the book. So unfortunately, otherwise it was a good book, good idea. Maybe if it was shortened and you know, the ending or the last half was kind of, you know, reconfigured, it might have been a little better. So next up, I read in the Dark Tower series, book 4, Wizard in Glass. This is a big boy. So book 4, Wizard in Glass. I love that this one has like illustrations in it. This one's so cool. So this was really good. I'm thankful that someone told me this was like a backstory for Roland, so that it wasn't just a continuation of the future events of the quartet, but it was a backstory for Roland's life, and most of it was took place kind of separate from what was going on, which is good. I went into it knowing kind of what to expect, and I was happy with it. It was very good. I still think 2 and 3 are my favorite. This one was really enjoyable. Made me want to continue reading. It just didn't quite reach the level of those other ones for me. And I've heard that a lot. Like 3 is usually either 3 or 4 are people's favorites, and they're kind of back and forth. And usually the ones that love 3 stop liking after 4. And I don't know. Whatever. Everybody's got their own thing. Everybody's got their own opinions. It's kind of crazy, right? That we all have separate opinions. I think so. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was excellent. I know that there are other books that I should read before continuing on with the series. I believe Salem's Lot, Insomnia, and I forget what the other one. There's another one that I think I should read before going into the 5th book. But I'm gonna try and put together a timeline of what should be read and how it should be read, and see if I can make that work. And I'll read those in order then. So I definitely know, like, it's people have said it's like mandatory. If you haven't read Salem's Lot, read it before you read book 5. So that's gonna be done. So Stephen King, Wizard in Glass, read that one. I also read Audition by Ryu Mirakami. This was really good. It was a fairly easy read, quick read, and it was quite enjoyable. It is basically a guy sets up a way to try to find a date or a wife by putting together this audition for a movie that doesn't really exist. And as the girls come in, he's kind of scoping them out to see if they're ones that he wants. And then the story progresses from there. It takes a little bit of a dark turn, and it's really, really enjoyable. If you know the story, you know how good it is. Next up, I also read Flowers for Algernon with my man Charlie. This movie, back in the day, I had never read the book, but I watched the movie when I was younger. The movie just tore me apart and was just gut-wrenching for me. I especially remember watching this movie at a time when I was having a really difficult time when I was younger. For those that don't know, throughout my teenage years, I was like really strung out on drugs. I was pretty much by myself. I was homeless for part of the time. I didn't have a lot of relationships, friends, family. Family was kind of there, but they were, doing their own thing. And I was, just driving my life in the ground, doing drugs and stuff. And so I was pretty broken and lonely, and, just having a difficult time. And Charlie is one of those ones where you feel it in your soul. And it really affected me in a huge way when I was younger, when I watched the movie. Braveheart too, that one just ripped my heart out and stomped it all over everywhere. I love that movie. I actually saw Braveheart like 5 times in the theater on the first week that it was out. I just remember sitting down in like one of the lower rows, and I had my hood on, and I was just sitting there crying watching the movie because it was so like emotional for me. But it was a good thing because it was getting that stuff out, and I was like being able to process some stuff or feel some things, or, you know, it was really cool. Anyways, life story with Ryan. So all that because I read this month. So this, it was really, really good. It didn't hit me as hard as it did when I was younger. My life is just night and day different than I was then. It didn't hit me as hard, like, you know, emotionally. It was very, very, very good. I wouldn't say this is my favorite. I wouldn't put this in like my top 10 books of all time, I don't think. It would be maybe in like a top 50 category kind of thing. It is sci-fi, but it's very, very mildly sci-fi. So I know some people say this is like their top sci-fi book of all time, and I'm kind of like, yeah, yes and no. You know, it is sci-fi, but it's not at the same time. Or it's just very mildly sci-fi. Basically, Charlie is he's a mentally handicapped guy. He is, what's the politically correct term that you have to say now? He's low level intelligence, and he is stunted in his understanding of things, and he can't process things like everybody else. You find out that he is, which is the case with most people. I have a few friends who have mental disabilities like this, and they are full of joy all the time. They're not bogged down by the garbage that our world puts on top of us. They don't care about just the stupid stuff that people freak out over. They just love life, and they love people, and they're full of joy, and it's awesome. And Charlie's like that. Charlie, then, they want to do like a little experiment where they think that they can take and alter his brain to allow it to kind of open up to open up to further intelligence and be able to grow in his intelligence and things like that. And that, you know, surgery is done, and then the rest of the story unfolds. And I don't want to spoil it if you haven't read it or anything. It's a great, great, great read, and you will fall in love with Charlie, and you will want to hang out with Charlie. And I named my first dog Charlie because of this movie. So anyways, it was really good. Next up, I read Earth Abides by George R. Stewart. George R. Stewart, not George R. R. George R. R. Martin. George R. Stewart, I read. And this is really good. It's, I forget when it was originally written. Early 1900s. No, not quite that far. 1950s. 1949. So originally written in 1949. It's very good. He's the last man on Earth, and there is, a few people that he interacts with and runs into. It's not like I Am Legend or something like that. It is not, not supernatural or anything like that. It's just an account of what happens to Ish, the main character, as he goes through his journey when the end of the world happens. What he encounters, how it grows, and it takes you from him at a younger age through like really his whole life. So it is a kind of a diary sort of events and everything that happens, and it's good. It is a slower pace. It is a little bit of a a plodding kind of thing, but there's a lot of stuff in it that's awesome. It really gets you to think of like, what would you do, or how would you do this, or how would you handle this, or really kind of just thinking about all the steps and things you would have to do to when there isn't, like, I always think about things when it's end of the world, and I usually have like there's zombies or something like that. I'm thinking about how to survive in a a world where everything's crazy, but what if it wasn't, there wasn't mutant things running around, and it was just surviving as a person at the end of the world? What would you do? So really good. Really good. All right. Next one up I read this month, or in November, is The Ruins. I've been wanting to read this for a long time because I loved the movie when I was younger. I haven't seen it for quite a while now, actually. I want to rewatch it now that I read this. It was really good. I'm so surprised I haven't read this before. If you like the movie at all, read the book. It's awesome. It is really, it follows the movie the movie follows the book very similarly. It is completely worth your time to read. This is up there easily for one of the top, 2 or 3 books I read this month. It's it's a 500 or so page book, but it's an easy read. It just flows super easy. The story doesn't really bog down too much. It doesn't get boring. It doesn't half the book isn't wasted where you're just kind of okay, just move on, it is constantly kind of moving. I really enjoyed the ending. I enjoyed pretty much everything in between. It's worth the read. Highly recommend this if you're it says best horror novel of the century. It is a horror novel, but it's not it's a horror novel. Yeah, it's good. It's good. All right, next up I read for the first time ever, Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. And by the way, I was reading books that by people I'd never read before this month for New Author November, other than the Stephen King, because I have a goal to read a Stephen King a month the whole year, and I've done it so far, and I want to continue. So other than that, all these authors I've never read anything by. So I have not read anything else by Chuck Palahniuk. I have the Will Smith edition, obviously. It's the movie tie-in version. Will Smith edition, if you didn't know, is just the book, the movie version of the book. It's just that phrase has been coined by Matt over at Bookpilled, and that kind of has just always stuck. So it is the Will Smith edition of the book. It is, I think it's kind of good that in a way, it's good that I had seen the movie because I could visualize very well. They did a really good job of bringing the book to life in the movie. But I also wish I had never seen it, because then I wouldn't have ruined the book for me. So I already kind of knew everything about it, what was going on and stuff. So if you've never seen the movie, which maybe around this time it's kind of been lost in the shuffle for people, and maybe people haven't seen it. If you've never seen it, don't watch it first. Read the book, then watch the movie, I think. So it's really good. Super good. Is it my favorite book of all time? No. Is it a great book? Yeah. But my favorite book I read this month, easily. This book was really good. I was kind of expecting it to not be good, because it's always in the top, I'd say the top 5 of people's sci-fi books of all time. Almost always this book is in the top 3 at least. And it was very enjoyable, and that is Ender's Game. So Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. This book is accessible for any age, really. It is, there's no language in it. Orson Scott Card purposefully took the language out. There might be a little bit in there. I've never heard the word fart in a book so many times. Literally, it's like, you fart eater, you fart mouth, you fart face, you fart sniffer, you fart holder, fart goblin, like fart everything. Any fart you can think of, it's fartastic. There's farts galore. It's just farterific. It's fart filled. I can't think of it anymore. Anyways, brain fart. So it's really good, and I can't wait to read the rest of them, because I was thoroughly thoroughly engulfed in this one. It did win the Hugo and the Nebula Award, and it is probably one of the top books of all time for people on a sci-fi book list. I know several YouTubers that would say this is their favorite book of all time. I don't know if it was my favorite book of all time, but it was pretty darn good. It was pretty darn good. And I want to see how it resonates over time. Is it going to stick with me, or is it going to kind of dwindle out a little bit over the next couple months? We'll see. This next month, I got to take all my books I read and I got to rank them all. So we'll see where it lands when I do that. So I'll tell you this. It's not going to be a #1 slot. Sorry. But we'll see. It may crack the top 10. I don't know. We'll see. I gotta bust all those books out and try again. So anyways, Ender's Game, super good. Enjoyed it. That's everything I read for the month. Appreciate you guys, and catch you on the next one. Yeah.